Good afternoon, my crafty friends. Today, I'm going to show you how I made this card. Someone gave me a card made with this design, this type of card for my birthday. And so I've cased it and I'm just changed it up a little bit and added my own touches, my own graphics. And we're going to do it a little bit different than what we've normally done in the past, or what my card was that I received from a friend, because it was stamped and colored, etc., and cut with dies. Today, we're going to make this card. Here's our recipe sheet, but we're going to use the Cricut. We're going to use the Cricut to cut our design paper and our sentiment squares, our inside sentiment, and all the little graphics you see on here, because I've quit buying like designer series paper because I can't get many cards out of one pack. It's more expensive now. It's like almost $20 a pack for paper. But I do like Stampin' Up! Cardstock. I do like making cards with Stampin' Up! Products. I just don't stamp anymore. So I'm using a lot of digital art and digital paper. And one thing about using digital paper, there is no waste, because you're only cutting, it only prints what it's going to cut out. So you're not taking a whole sheet of paper and cutting a bunch of squares out of it and throwing the rest of it away. This will print what size you want that it's going to cut, and that's all it prints. It's just that. And so print and cut for me, making cards, is more economical. Printer ink is cheaper than designer series paper. Today we're using shaded spruce from Stampin' Up! And of course, Stampin' Up! Still has wonderful quality cardstock in beautiful colors, and I still buy from Stampin' Up! When I want to buy materials for making cards. And we're going to use Melon Mambo, and we're going to, for our printed paper, we're going to use Nina 90 pound 94 white bright and 163 GSM. So this I order from Amazon, and the links below will be links to all the products that I use when making cards nowadays. You're going to need a few tools. You're going to need some sort of tape, tape runners. I use Ad tape. I also like to use glue for certain parts of my card. I use Barely Art Precision Craft Glue. You're going to need a pair probably of little snips. You'll definitely need a bone folder. You might need a pencil. You might need some reverse tweezers, and you might need some Stampin' Right markers or ink pads, because as you can see, I've put some embellishments on here, so you might want some embellishments. Plus this is colored in with markers. There's a die cut that I use from Stampin' Up! To cut the little leaf, and then the flowers are of course print and cut from Cricut, or from an artist that I used the Cricut to cut with. And then I did some embellishments here with pens. I used a gel pen, and I used some clear glitter pen and gold glitter pen to make the leaves on the flowers look more sparkly. Inside, these two graphics are also downloaded from Etsy and used to put on this piece of cardstock, and it cuts it into this shape. So, all right, so if we want to add a graphic that we would like the Cricut to cut for us, this is how I do it. I'm sure there are other ways that other people have come up with that could be possibly even easier, but I can't imagine how it could be. So this is the card we're working on today. It was a birthday card, but now I'm changing it to a thinking of you card, because I've got a couple of people I need to send best wishes to. So this is the graphic right here, the flowers, that I want cut out so that they can be placed right here on the very front of the card with the sentiment thinking of you, so that it's 3D. And what I would like to do is not have to fussy cut this. So what I did was I went out on the internet to some of my favorite digital designers on Etsy, and I purchased this file. I think it was $1.80. It is called, and I wrote it down, it's by Digital Image Magic, and those words are all together in one thing if you're searching for it on Etsy. Digital Image Magic, and it's called Watercolor Flowers Vibrant. and there's about 20 different ones in there. This is the one I picked because I like the gold centers that actually show, because I can put a little glitter on there and a little bit of gold in the center, or maybe even like a rhinestone, and that'll really make it pop out. The thinking of you sentiment that's on this front part comes from actually Cricut Design Space. I just clicked on images up here where the balloon is, and I typed in thinking of you, and several different ones came up. This is the one I picked, and I just changed the color of it to green to match the green paper that I'm going to use. Now this part, which is inside, I don't like my handwriting anymore because I can't really hold a pen properly. So I used my single line inline font that I downloaded. It's a purchased font. I think this one is called, I'll look it up for you real quick right here. I believe it is, it's a system font. You have to purchase it and install it. Single line font. And I believe this one is Cue the Music. And it's a single line font. You can just Google single line fonts. It'll take you to their website. And you can download it if you want to use it. There's a lot of fonts that Cricut has built in that's perfect for this. It's just this one looks the closest to my original handwriting back when I could hold a pen. These two little graphics here of the little cute butterflies, that is another one of my favorite artists on Etsy. It's called Dreaming Clip Studios, and this is the Whimsical Tropical Animals. It's got butterflies and frogs and lizards and all kinds of cute little stuff, and I added both of those to this particular part that's going to be inside the card. Now this card gets layered with a card base, and I'll go over that when I'm putting the card together. The pieces, these gray pieces, are what the designer series paper are, and I like to actually also buy my digital paper from Etsy, and I'm not sure what this one I've had for a very long time. I'm not quite sure which one it is, what it's called, but this is it on my paper, my graphics that I've uploaded. And when I add it to my if I go over here and I say upload and I add it to my canvas, it's going to of course pop up on the left side and for me to download some from Cricut and not from here. So what I did with this piece of paper is really 8 by 8. So I'm going to change the size to 8 by 8, which will make it more graphically the way it should be when it was designed, because it was designed on a 12 by 12 sheet of paper. So all you have to do is take the sizes of your digital paper that you want to cut, and I'm just going to put one there, and I'm going to bring these to the front so I can see where I've put them. And I'm going to put this one here because this is going to be the biggest piece, and bring it to the front so I can see where it is. And then this gray piece is going to be behind the focal point on the front of the card. So as you can see, I've got all three of these pieces on this 8 by 8 piece of paper, and all I'm going to do is select the first one and say slice, and I'm going to select the next one and slice, and select the little one and say slice. You can tell I'm Southern when I say slice. It should be select slice. But there are my three pieces. This is what I'm just going to put these off the side because I don't need those anymore, because these are going to be print and cut. Now I could just go into my photo software, and I'm going to turn this so I'll fit on one piece of paper. And turn that just like that. And I could just go into my photo software. I could take this graphic that I downloaded from this company. I can't remember which one it is, but there's literally thousands upon thousands of digital papers out there that you can come up with one that fits your color scheme of what you want to use. I just figured this one was the closest match to these flowers right here. They're not quite the same, but the pink in them is pretty close, and the green is pretty close. And my cardstock I'm using is Melon Mambo and the green is called Spruce. These are both Stampin' Up! Papers. I'm not going to cut those with the Cricut. I'm actually just going to cut those with my paper trimmer because they're 8.5 by 11 sheets. And if I were using Basil paper, I would use the Cricut to cut everything and score everything. But because this is Stampin' Up! Paper, it doesn't like the Cricut as much as some of the other textured papers. So I will just cut the paper that the cardstock I'm going to use by hand with my paper trimmer. Now this particular graphic, the way you create something like this is you start off with your blank card, and I'm just going to unflatten this and I'm going to detach it. So I have this piece of cardstock, and it is just I'm just having a piece of white. And then I went out and uploaded my 2 graphics, my little whimsical characters, and I just resized them to fit. I took this little person and I took the little funky butterfly right here, and I added them to my canvas. So now if I go back to my canvas, those are there. And of course, again, Cricut Design Space wants me to download something of theirs and use it. I don't want to do that. I want to use the ones I've already picked. So I'm just resizing these down to so they'll be in the little corners. I want them just to be tiny and in the corners of my writing. And the other one, I don't see where it went. Let's try that again. And it is this little character, and I've added add it to canvas, then go back to my canvas, and again it wants to give me some other whimsical characters, but I'm going to put, oops, I did it twice. So we're going to put her down in the little corner, and all I'm going to do is just zoom in so I can kind of see what sizing I'm going with here, because this particular thing where I wrote thinking of you and holding you close in my heart is just using the font that I told you about and using the pen feature. So I just put it in there, and I took the writing part and I said pen, and then I attached it all, and then it's going to be put on the card with everything else. So let me zoom in so you can see what I'm doing, and I'm just going to resize these to small so they'll be in the corners. Just like that, and just like that, because I just think they're cute and uplifting because they're little sweet characters. And then the text that I wrote, I'll just show you how I did that. I'll just ungroup this so it can come off, and select, move these little people out of the way, move this out of the way, and this is my text. And I'm going to attach it all. It comes when you use a font that is a drawing or handwritten font like this one is, you have to ungroup it and then attach it to itself. So I put my little people in the corner, my little butterfly here. I'm going to kind of turn it just slightly so it's just a little wonky and funny. And I'm going to bring my text right here. I'll bring my text forward so that it writes on top of the little people. Okay, so once I got all that done, this is attached. So now I'm going to say attach. Now if I were to just go now and try to print and cut that, it's going to try to cut out these little people, these little butterflies. So I want to say flatten. So when I flatten the whole piece down here in the bottom corner over here on your layers panel, you select flatten, and that will make it print this square with this rectangle just like this, and then it'll cut out the rectangle, not the little individual pieces. Okay, so that's how that is done. If you had a question about how to attach and flatten, there's many tutorials out there on how to accomplish what you're trying to do with attaching and flattening, and what print and cut actually does. All these things, like the little square here where it says thinking of you, with this has been attached and flattened so that it will actually not try to cut out these words that say thinking of you. Otherwise it's going to try to cut that. instead of draw it. So we want everything to be print and cut. We want it to print this, and then we want it to cut out this shape. Everything else is going to be cut with the actual just paper trimmer. Okay, so now I'm ready to add my flower motif that's going to be on the front of the card, this part right here. The little leaves, I added those. Those are done with a StaminUp die cut using just some green paper. I will show you the link. When I'm putting the card together, I'll show you the die that I used to cut that. So let's go get our flowers. And in order to use them on this card, they need to be fussy cut. Well, I don't want to sit and do fussy cutting, and the class doesn't want to sit and do fussy cutting on making 4 or 5 of these cards. It takes too long, and some people just aren't very good with their scissors. So we're going to let the Cricut do the fussy cutting for us. So I went out to one of my favorite vendors again. This is Digital Image Magic, and it's the watercolor flowers that are vibrant. That's what the file is called. I have a lot of this designer's stuff. It's Digital Image Magic, and it is all that's together with no spaces between those words if you look it up on Etsy. So I'm going to go over to Upload, and I'm going to find the flowers that I want. I'm going to show you how I uploaded it. This right here is the one I'm using, but I'm going to upload it again. So I click on Upload, I browse, I find the flowers, which is this one right here, Flower Watercolor Vibrant, and I let that be what I'm uploading. And you see over here, Cricut's trying to get me to download something else instead of using their whatever I want to use. They want me to use something else. But I'm going to say continue because I don't want to do that. I click continue. So now I'm going to go over here and change the tolerance on the left. I'm going to change that to 10 because some of this area right here on the edges where this yellow is and stuff, I don't, and this pink, that's very pale. I want to make sure it only cuts out the flowers and doesn't take away any of my color at all. So I'm changing the tolerance to 10, and I'm just going to go somewhere and click on the background. Ta-da! And there it is, all gone. Now I'm going to zoom in because that stem is there. Well, on the left side of that stem, there's still a background. So I'm going to remove that. So now what it would do is it would cut out these flowers, but it's also going to cut out that stem. And I just don't really necessarily want that to happen. So I'm going to click over here on the left where it says Erase. And I'm going to select the eraser. And then I'm going to make the size a little bit smaller, maybe about 13. And go back over here to my photo or my picture, and I'm going to zoom in, and I'm just going to take the eraser and very meticulously go in and get rid of that stem. Now make sure you get rid of all of it, or everything you don't want it to try to cut out, because even that little bitty bit right there, it's going to try to cut that out. So I'm going to gently I'm going to leave a little bit of it just so I don't want to mess up the contour of the flower. Right, see, I don't like that. So I have to say reverse. Okay. Just a little bit, just a little bit, just a little bit. Just like that. And that's good enough. That little piece in the corner won't matter. If it bothers me, I'll take my snips and snip it out. So I click on Apply and Continue. Now you can see what it's going to do. I don't even know why they have this box over on the left where it says multiple layers, creates 9 layers. It does not work. The little beta button there, it's a good thing it still says beta after a year because it still doesn't work right. But what it's going to cut is what you see in this black area. So that is correct. So I want my flat graphic to cut with this outline. So I'm going to click on Flat Graphic and press Continue. And I'm just going to, it doesn't matter where I save it. It's just all my graphics are in one place. I will click Upload. And it's going to upload it to my canvas. And again, Cricut's going to try to get me to pick something else. And some of these are very pretty. I have looked down through here. Some of them are very cute and very colorful and probably cut very easily, but I wanted it to look more realistic and more like a watercolor. So you can select these. All you got to do is type in watercolor digital flowers, and it'll bring up all these on the left. It sees what you're doing, and it tries to give you something else instead.
Now I want this graphic to be about 3 inches. So I'm gonna change, because right now it's 12 something. So I'm gonna change it to about 3 inches and see if that's about right, because it's gonna go on this little square here. And I'm gonna turn it, because I think I want the green part kind of at the top, or maybe closer like that. Maybe like that. I can twirl it around however I want it. Uh, yeah, about like that, but it needs to just be tiny bit smaller. Let's go about 289. 2.89 inches, about like that. Oh, that looks perfect. So that's how it'll be on the front of the card, and this is the way it will be on the front of the card. This is the green part that is outlining this card. So it'll be like that, and then all of that will be on top of the pink like this with this designer paper behind it. So I think that's probably a good size. I'm going to go with that. Now, in order to get these all to print, because I want to print and cut, this is going to cut this shape. I'm going to straighten it back up because there's no reason for it to be tilted. I'm going to do it like this so it doesn't take up so much room, about like that, so it's nice and square. So we got this piece, and if I just put all those together and click on attach, and I don't get a little red warning over here on the right side under layers, it means it's going to print that out just like that and cut out these 3 shapes. Same thing here. I've attached these and I didn't get a little red warning. So now I'm ready just to click make, and this will take me over and we'll do print and cut out our pieces.
Here is a little trick that I use when I'm doing print and cut ink. Because this ink is so vibrant and I want it to stay that way, and I don't want the card to get damaged if it were to get like some sponging on the edge, which is water-based ink, it might make something run. And since this is just a inkjet printer, I want to make sure that it's really durable. So before I cut it out, after I have smoothed it completely with my spatula and gotten it really stuck down to the paper, I usually even put a few pieces of washi tape in the corner. I use a product by Tim Holtz. It's called Distressing Glaze or Micro Glaze, and I put it on with this little sponge dauber tool that also comes from Tim Holtz. I put very, very little of it on the sponge, and then you just rub it over the part that's going to get cut out. And what this does is seal that ink so that if, like right now, I could drip water on this and it would not make this ink run because this glaze will actually seal the paper. And it also makes it cut better. Now, this is the 90-pound 163 GM paper, 94 bright white cardstock from Nina, and I ordered off Amazon. The link will be in the description below. All right, so now that we've got all of our pieces cut, we're ready to assemble our card. A few of the things I like to do first, as far as like inking and prepping the actual each individual item. But first I want to go over my list and make sure I have all my pieces cut before I start putting something together and have to stop and go back and find my pieces. So we have our 8, here's our recipe list. So we have one base color. This is our base color, the Melon Mambo by Stampin' Up. That's what this paper is right here, Stampin' Up paper, Melon Mambo. And it takes half a sheet because this is 11 inches long when those 2 pieces are together, and that's a half of a sheet. So you can make 2 cards out of 1 sheet of the pink and 2 cards out of 1 sheet of the green. So we have our 8-inch by 4 1/4 piece of paper scored at 2.5. Now, when you're using a scoreboard and you put this on there and you use your scoring tool and you score, this is the ditch side where you have scored. And a lot of y'all already know this, but just for the newbies that may not know this information, you always fold the card with the ditch. So this was the side we made the ditch on. Our crafty girls call this the ditch maker. So you just, on the side with the ditch in it, that's the side you fold with, because the paper is already actually wounded there, so it will fold easily. Your bumpy side will be inside. Okay, so we have our 8" by 4¼ inch piece with a 2½ inch score line. And then we have one more piece that's 4¼ by 3 inches. That's our base parts. Okay, then we need 3 pieces of contrasting cardstock. One that is 3 5/8 by 2 3/8. And then we need another one that is this one is 2 by, this is the 2 by 3/75, and then the third piece of the green is contrast 3½ by 4½ right there. So there's our 3 contrast pieces. Here's our little leaves that I'm going to stick in there. You don't have to do this part. It comes from a Stampin' Up! Die set. The die set is called Flourish Thinlits Dies, and it's this little leaf right here. You can just cut a leaf by hand if you want to, or if you're using your Cricut, you can just click on leaves and it'll bring up dozens that you can cut. I don't recommend cutting the leaves with the Cricut and using this cardstock. It will not cut as good. If you're going to use the Stampin' Up! Cardstock scraps, then you will need a die cut. That goes with that. Here's our what we'll call our front sentiment piece, 3½ by 2¼ our inside sentiment piece, which is 4¼ by 3 inches, 3 pieces of designer paper, 2 3/4 by 4, 4 by 5 1/4, and then 2 by 3 3/4. There's our 3 pieces of that. And then our focal point, which is this piece here, which is the flowers. And so it looks like we have all of our pieces. What I want to do first before I put the card together is I like to do a little bit of inking. But now I'm not going to ink these pieces right here. I don't think they necessarily need it. Sometimes over inking is worse than doing no inking at all. Now, as far as the flowers are concerned, this is really going to be hard to try to ink these edges. Plus, I want to keep it nice and soft and not dark around the edges. So I'm just going to use a marker, and I'm using the lightest pink that I have. And I'm just going to run the edge of the felt tip in around and get the little point and get it in those crevices, because I just don't want this white edge to show. Even if you were using designer paper and cutting something out, it's still going to have a white edge. So I recommend doing something that gives it a finished look. I also recommend either you do something that complements what needs inking, or that complements the piece of paper it's going to be laying on. And this one's pink. So there's one of the flowers that is mostly green. So I'm going to, and I always do this from the back, so if my hand slips, I don't make a mark on my design. But that looks pretty good. That's pretty much got that covered up. And as far as this pink color, this is the lightest pink I have, which is Pretty in Pink. Or Pink Pirouette's probably even lighter, but I couldn't find that pen at the moment. Okay, now I'm going to go around the green flower with a very light green, and this green is called Mint Macaroon. I'm not even sure Stampin' Up! Is going to be carrying markers anymore, so if you have markers, I suggest you invest in some re-inkers and keep them going, because Stampin' Up! Markers and Stampin' Up! Colors are some of the prettiest colors out there. And you can't find really good markers like these. Okay, I'm going to do some embellishing to this after I've made the card. I'm going to do some gold in here and do a little bit of a wink of Stella on all the petals. But I'll do that after the card's actually assembled. Now these 3 pieces, what I'm going to consider the designer series paper. I didn't use actual designer series paper. I downloaded paper from Etsy. This is one of my favorite artists. I like all of their papers that they create. I've used this one many, many, many times. I've scaled it to fit this card. But I do want to put some ink around the corners of this. And what I like to do is, like, use the ink that matches the paper it's going to be mounted to. So this piece is actually going to be mounted to the pink. So I'm going to sponge around the edges of it with pink. This piece is going to be mounted to a green background, and this is going to be mounted to a green background. So these two pieces I'm going to sponge the edges with green, and the other one I'm going to sponge with pink. And I'm just going to use a little makeup sponge here and use this Tranquil Tide because I don't have Garden Green, which is basically what this color is. It's spruce, but I don't have any spruce stuff because it's a new color, and I'm not a demonstrator anymore, so I don't have all those colors. But these are pretty, I mean, it's pretty close to Garden Green. The untrained eye would not know the difference. And I'm putting just a little bit of green just to cover up the white cut edge. I don't want to put a lot of distressing and make the paper look dirty. Okay, so that's the green. Now I'm going to use Melon Mambo, which is the pink. And I'm, again, use a clean sponge. And I'm going to put a little pink around the edges. Just like that. It doesn't need much. And this actual ink pad just got inked, so it's got a little bit more on there than I want. So I'm going to do like that and take off some. So this gets mounted on the pink. These two will be on green. So we're done with the inking part. And you can throw your sponges away or clean them and use them again. If you use these little sponge stoppers, you can wash them and use them over. All right, so let's assemble the card. Now we've inked our flowers, we've inked our designer paper. Let's put the card together. So the card is an interesting fold. It's a fancy fold. And what we want to make sure is this is the inside piece. And then this piece gets mounted with a green background, just like that. And we want to make sure that when we have our, this is the order in which it goes. This goes on here. And then this will go on top of this. And that goes on top of this. So that's the sandwich there for that front part. But what we want to make sure of is once, and of course this just goes on here and goes on the front of the fold right here. It goes like that. We want to make sure once this is all assembled that when it goes right here in the center of this card, like that, because this is going to all open up together like this, that this part is in the right place so that when it's closed, this green, we'll move this out of the way for now, this green piece that's inside makes another border around this sandwich. So that's how we want it all to end up looking. Now, I use glue a lot of times. Making cards, I can use tape because it doesn't need a lot of structural integrity. So on this inside piece, since it's just designer paper, which means it's only 90 pounds, so it doesn't need a lot of strength. I'm just going to center this in the middle of this part, just like so. So that's how that goes together. You can use a burnishing tool. I'm just used to using those, and I do it a lot. Okay, so that looks good and straight. Now this is what's going to go in the middle, and it's going to be attached to this piece. So I'm going to go ahead and attach it to this green piece. And another thing I do with my cardstock, once I've cut it with the paper trimmer, I like to lay the cardstock down and either use a bone folder and just run it along the edge like that, or I run my fingernail down the edge like that, and it gives it a smooth, nice finish. It's not going to give you a paper cut, so to speak. I like it. It makes it feel like it's been cut with a die. Okay, and this goes on here, and I'm just using tape again because this isn't really something really heavy that needs to be mounted with vigor. So I'll get that lined up as best I can. Okay, and that goes there. Now this is what's going to go inside, but I'm not going to put that on yet because I want to make sure when I build this sandwich that it all comes out and matches. So tape on the back of this front piece. just like that, and line that up like so. And I got that little bit crooked, so I'm going to give it a second try. I usually, when I used to make lots and lots and lots of cards, I always did my putting my paper on its background and then going in and trimming the paper to the distance I wanted instead of trying to get it all lined up and perfect every time. It was just easier to do that and trim it. So now this piece gets put on the front. But again, I don't want to use tape there because this is the structural part of the card. So I'm going to actually glue this on. And I'm just using my Bearly Art glue, my favorite glue with a precision point. It's just a great paper glue. Open this up flat, get that in the middle, just like so. And again, I'm just going to roll that out so that it's adhered everywhere. Now, so that's going to go there, that goes there. So let's build this sandwich. Now, if you wanted to take your markers, which you can do, take maybe this pink, you could actually do a little coloring in right there of your flower if you wanted to have a little something extra for your stamped image. Not necessary, but I think I'll do that. Gives it just a little bit more finished look, like I actually stamped it. Now this piece goes on top of this piece, and I'm going to use tape. And you can see I use a lot of tape. A lot of people, oh, good grief, how much tape do you go through? Well, I'd like for it to stay together at least until the person I'm giving it to has a chance to open it and look at it. And a lot of these tapes, if you don't use a lot, it's not going to be very sturdy. Now this piece gets mounted to this, just like that, in its center. And I would again use tape because this is just 90-pound paper, so it should hold it without any issue. This is AdTech tape. There's a link to it in my description below. I use this now instead of snail, StaminUp brand, because the refills are cheaper, and you can buy a whole box on Amazon for what a dispenser cost of the other stuff. Not that I don't like StaminUp products, but some of them are overpriced. Okay, just like that. Yeah, so that's nice and stuck down. This piece goes in the center of this. And this time I'm going to use some glue because it's going to have something mounted to it. It's going to make it be heavier because I'm going to put the flowers on it in the corner. So I'm going to make sure I get this right in the center, just like so. And I know a lot of people say, good grief, you wasted a whole piece of designer paper and it's going to be all covered up. But you know what? I didn't waste a sheet of designer paper because I use print and cut for my designer paper, and it only cuts what is needed, prints what needs to be cut, and only cuts what you need. So you're not wasting any paper. That's why I've gone to that on most of my projects. Although I have to say, Stampin' Up! Does have some of the most beautiful papers, and so does Graphics 45. Absolutely stunning, stunning papers. Okay, now this is going to get mounted here. And what we want to make sure of is that this piece inside, like that, I'm going to line them up so you can see how they go. So that when it's shut, that will be lined up where it needs to be. And this will be in the center here, like that, where it is supposed to be. So I'm going to hold my finger there and open this back up. Yes, and that's right in the center, just perfectly right there. So I can make, if I want to, I'm going to take this light color pink and I'm going to make just a little tiny chip mark right there where you can't really see it. I just know that's about where it is. I'm going to put some glue on the back because this will give me, using glue will give me a little bit of time to maneuver it where it needs to be. So it's going to go right there, and that is in the center of this piece, actually, just like so. All right, there we go. Now all we got to do now is make sure this gets lined up correctly with this. And how I'm going to do that is I'm going to use a piece of washi tape. If I can find some washi tape, I'll just use this piece that's on my tablet here. And I'm just going to put just a little tiny piece. Get that right where it's supposed to go. Just put a little tiny piece right here, not stick it too tight. And I'm going to open this up, and I'm going to take a pencil, and I'm going to draw a line right here. And I'm going to erase where I wrote those dimensions, because we don't want that to show. So now I know that that's where it's going to go, up to that line. So I can take my glue, and it's going to go this way. Make sure I put it on the right side of the paper. I'm going to put glue on here up to that line, just like that. And then I'm going to take it, line it up like this. I know that that's how it's going to go, right there, just like that. I'm going to take my card, and I'm going to lay it up to that line, just like that. And it's centered between the top and bottom. And before it has a time to completely dry, I'm going to close it gently, make sure it all still lines up. Needs a little hint that way and a little hint. That's why I use glue, because glue gives you time to change your mind. And once I get it where I want it, I'm going to hold it down and hold it by this end down, and I'm going to rub that really good so that it's going to stay right in that one spot, just like that. Here we go, and there's our gate, opening and closing. Now we want to mount our flowers, and I'm just going to glue them on. I'm not going to use dimensionals because this particular card, because I'm going to be mailing it. If you're not going to be mailing your card, you're going to be giving it to someone, you might want to use dimensionals. But it's already pretty thick. So I think I want it this way with the green on this side. Just like so. So that's where it's going to be. I'm going to use my tweezers, and I'm going to I'm eyeballing it so I can see where the glue needs to go. So the glue needs to go all over this green flower. And it needs to go in the center part of this, over to right there, and right up to there. Just like that. Now I'm going to lay it down. Like that, right there. That's a personal preference. You put it wherever you'd like for it to be. And again, I'm going to burnish it. Make sure that glue is spread out nice and flat. And it's still got a little bit of dimension here because it's not glued down there. It's not glued down here. But all this is glued nice and flat. Now we want to take our stones. I'm going to use some of these, some of my favorite embellishments that came from Stampin' Up! Years ago. I'm hoarding them to try not to use them up. But these are enameled dots. I think that's what they call them, enameled dots. And I'm going to put 3 of these up in the corner. I got a green, get it off this paper. Put one right here. Just like, get over. They want to be aggravating when you don't want them to be. Get where it goes, right there. If anybody can come up with an easier way to do that, please let me know. Now I can go this way, or this way. I think I'm going to go to the left with my now smaller dot that's in a pink. I think it's actually I don't know what the original color was, and this was This was some sort of limey green. It's close. Still yellow. Just like that. I'm going to roll them with a burnishing tool. That's going to make sure they're stuck. I also have these little dots that if they don't stick good, I use some of those. Okay, there's that. It opens up. There's our beautiful card. And now all it needs is our name on the back. I use my little butterfly labels. Just like that. One in the middle with the date, the year. And then when I give it to someone, I take a photo of it and write down who I gave it to on the photo so that it can be, I won't give them the same one twice. I didn't put these leaves on there because this has this now, so I wasn't sure if I even liked the leaves. But if you wanted the leaves, just make sure you put them under the flower. I'm not even sure if I do, I'm going to go back and put it right, just one right there. I just don't want anything to interfere with this color here. And that's not quite the same color. Okay, so there's our finished card. And happy crafting. If you have questions, please post them in the comments. I try to read the comments and answer questions that people ask. And if you have any questions about any of the tools I use, I'll be happy to answer those also. Most of them will be listed in the comments. I have a list of all the tools I normally use. And while we're signing off, I'm going to actually do a little embellishment here on my flowers. I may go back and put a rhinestone in the center of these. But I'm using this gold gel pen like that just to highlight those centers. I'm going to use my Wink of Stella and put some in the center. This is gold. And I'm going to use Wink of Stella and do some highlighting of these leaves. All it does is give it a shimmer. This is the shimmer color. And just like that. I'm going to go through my rhinestone box now and see if I can find some rhinestones for the center. So there we go. There's our card, and happy crafting!